Good morning, my YouTube viewers. It's Crystal here. In this video, what we're going to be talking about is lesson 4 of the course that I'm working on, Basic Excel course. And so this is really just a hands-on course. There's not really any writing involved. Normally, whenever I make a course, I normally write the course in Word and I copy and paste the illustrations to the Word document. And then I give the course based upon the software that I'm writing the course on, such as Google Colab. I write a lot of courses on Google Colab and Python and R. But this course, it's really, I just really didn't find it practical to actually put the course into Word because it's just a hands-on course and I'm using Excel and I'm going over the lesson plan and I'm talking to the viewer, you, about everything that I know about Excel from working on Excel for more than 35 years. And this is just a basic course. This is for someone who doesn't know anything about Excel, just starting Excel. So if you're just starting Excel, this is a good basic course to get you started using Excel. And so basically it's lesson 4. Lesson 1 was an introduction, and we didn't really do much. I just showed you the Excel tabs and ribbons and everything like that. And lesson 2 was entering data. So we entered some data. Lesson 3 was basic formatting. And so with lesson 2, we did like days of the week, months of the year in a sequence to enter data. Lesson 3, we did some basic formatting. And so I made just a sample payroll data, just to give you an idea of basic formatting. And so lesson 4, we're going to be working on formulas. So if you like formulas, this is where you need to be. So I've already, in lesson 1, we went into the system and found Excel and opened Excel. In lesson 2, we went into the system and found Excel and opened Excel. So lesson 3, we just pulled up Excel from the taskbar. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to pull up Excel from the taskbar, because you should by now know how to go into your computer and find Excel and get it. So I'm just pulling Excel off from the taskbar. So here we are in the taskbar. And basically what it is, because this lesson is just a little bit more complex than the previous lessons, so I made up some data. And like in lesson 3, I made up data as well. And whenever I made up the data, we formatted the data that I made up. But in lesson 4, we're going to be using Excel's inbuilt formulas. So if you come over here to the formulas tab, and you've got some inbuilt formulas, so you can say insert function, recently used functions, financial functions, logical functions, text functions, date and time functions, lookup and reference functions, math and trig functions, and other functions. So that's what you're going to be using. But really, truthfully, that's like, if I don't know how, Excel's got loads of functions in them, and if I don't know how to do something, then I'll search it on Google how to do it, which is what I've had to do in my current job, because I have some, in my current job, I have a listing of employee numbers, and some of these numbers, appended to some of these numbers, is in a dash and another number. And then so because you have a dash and another number, then I have to use a text function. And the text function that I use, I'll just say equals, I'll give you an example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dash 6. Okay. Let's see if I can find this. dash 6. Okay. And then so you're going to go over here and you can see equals left, because you're going to be aligning it to the left. You want everything on the left. And then I7, and then you write comma, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you want the first 5 characters, and then you type enter. So that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But let's say you want the last character. So if you want the last character, you're going to say equals. You notice every time you have a function, you have to say equals. And I'm going to try this. I've never done it before, but I'm going to try it. Right. And we'll say we want the last character. So we'll say 1. So we want everything to the 1 character to the right. So that's going to be 6. But you have to make sure that there's a character to the right, because if you don't make sure that there's a character to the right, then you may get the other bit of the character. And then so if I'm not sure how to do something, then what I'll do is I'll do a search on Google, and then I'll ask Google what formula to use. How do you do such and such? And sometimes I don't get what I want. For example, we'll take this one. Okay, so this is the employee number, and then this is the one, and we'll just say right here, don't use. We don't want to use it because it has the dash and the 6 on it. And then we'll say don't use. So I'll give you a message, don't use it. And then so what we'll do is we'll format these 3. We're going to format. So you double click onto it, and then you say format cells, and then you say alignment, and then you say wrap text. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap the text. And then we can say so you can say employee number use. So that's the one that you're allowed to use. But see, the thing is, it's like if you want to copy and paste, if you want to copy and paste this data onto another spreadsheet, which is what I have to do, it won't work because it's got a formula in it. So let's say employee number so we're going to say employee number, copy and paste, and that's all you can do. You can do Control C, and then you go paste over here 1, 2, 3, and that's going to allow you to paste the values. And then so what you can do is when you copy and paste this data onto another spreadsheet, which is what I have to do, you just copy the employee num, copy and paste, and it will work if you do that. And I actually looked on the Google search to see if I could copy and paste this column, if there was any way, if there was a formula that would allow me to use only the values of a certain number. And in Excel, there's not a formula that allows you to use only a certain number. And because of that, you have to copy and paste the data. But you have to use paste special and use the one that says values. You see that? So the thing is whenever I'm programming in Python, because I know how to program in Python, Python does have a values function where you can use just the values of a cell, but obviously this isn't Python, and so there's no way that you can use just the values of a cell unless you copy and paste, and you have to copy and paste the values. So because Excel does not have that functionality, that means there's an extra step in my process that I have to use. But I just wanted to show you that, and the reason why I wanted to show you that is just to show you some of the things that I have to do. And yeah, it's just some of the things that I have to do, give you a little bit more insight into Excel, show you things that I do with Excel. And then obviously I'm week after next, when I go back into work, I want to get another software program on my computer and start making reports with that other software. So hopefully I'll be able to do even more things with Excel. So I'm just going to delete these 3 columns of data because I don't need them anymore. And then, so we've deleted the 3 columns of data. And then what we're going to do is I've given you some formulas. Remember that when you write a formula, the first character is going to be an equal sign. So I've showed you how to do the left, and that's for text processing, and right, that's for text processing. Okay, so what I've done in this particular lesson, what I did was I sort of like made a chart of my income and expenses. And so basically in my real income expenses, it's not going to look like this because like every day when I'm working, I go to the canteen and I buy a salad or I buy a hot chocolate or something like that. So rather than saying 100, so it's going to say like 3 pounds here, 4 pounds here, because a salad is $3.75. So in real life, my income and expenses is going to look different from this, because rather than saying I have allocated 100 pounds for eating out, I'm going to say like $3.75 for 4 days a week that I'm at work getting a salad. And then like for charity shop items, rather than saying if I go to a charity shop, which is, well, I have to go to because I'm on a really super low income, I would have like the purchases that I bought at the charity shop individually. But I'm just saying, well, hypothetically, I would spend 50 pounds at a charity shop a month. I mean, might not spend that much, but I do. I have to go to charity shops or cheap shops to buy my clothes. So we'll say 50 pounds a month, which I don't eat that. And then groceries. I go grocery shopping several times a week. So it wouldn't actually be 100 pounds for grocery shopping at one go. It might be like 15 pounds 6 times a month. You know, council tax, yeah, that's pretty standard. I have to pay council tax. Phone bill, that's pretty standard. I have to pay a phone bill. Water bill, actually, I pay my water bill all in one lump sum, but it calculates down to about 50 pounds a month. Electricity, I spend about 20 pounds a week, so that's going to be 100 pounds a month. And rent is going to be about 500 pounds a month. I live in a very tiny studio type apartment. I don't even have a living room. So that's my rent. So this is my income and expenses. In real life, it's going to look different because rather than just having 130, oh, I have to buy a bed frame. My bed broke, so I have to buy a bed frame. So I've been saving my money for a bed frame. So in real life, it's going to look a lot different from that, because it's going to have, like, for eating out, that's at the staff restaurant, that's going to be $3.75 4 days a week. And then I might go to Mr. T's and get a lunch special, that's $4.99 every Friday. So in real life, my bank statement's going to look much different from this, but this is just an example, so you can make your own income and expenses. And that would be a good exercise for you to do, is when this lesson is over, if you go and make your own income and expenses. So this is Crystal's monthly spending, and I've emboldened it. Now, if I wanted to, I can do Control X. I can highlight the cell, click onto the cell and do Control X. That's going to delete it and move it over here to B, and then Control V. And so I've just moved the cell one bit over, one cell over to the right, to make it look a little bit more centered. And so these days, I'm going to delete this one. I don't need that one. So in order to delete a row of data, you highlight that row of data by clicking onto 5, because we're going to delete row number 5. You double click on the finger bar, the finger stylus, and you just type delete. So that way we're deleting one row of data. And so we're going to format the date. So we've got Crystal's monthly spending. Column A is going to be the date. Column B is going to be income in pounds. Column C is going to be reason. Column D is going to be expense in pounds. And column E is going to be reason, because you have to put, when you do your income and expenses, you need to put the reason for the income and expenses. So it's not good enough to just put your income and expenses. You have to put the reason for the income and the reason for the expenses. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the date. So in the last lesson that we did, we formatted text, but we're going to this is a refresher. So you highlight the cells, the date you want to set up, and then you double click on the finger pad, and you come over to where it says format cells. And then so you come over here to where it says number. So this is going to be a date. So you set it up for a date, and you can pick any date that you want, any date you want. So I'm just going to say 14 March 2012, and okay. So we've set up the date. So 17 June 2026 and 10 July 2026. And so this is about a month of expenses. So I had income of around $500 on 17 June, and that was my sickness benefit. And I had income around 29. I'm going to have income around 29 June. We'll say 700 pounds. And that's the pay that I get for working part-time, because my particular situation is I'm limited in how many hours I can work and how much money I can make. So that's just the pay I get for working part-time. That's what the government tells me I am allowed to do. So now we've got our expenses. So we set up our expenses here. I've already done this, but I'll show you how to do it. You highlight the cells that you want to set up, and you double click on the finger pad, and you go to format cells, and then it says accounting, because that's what this is, accounting. We're not going to have a symbol. You could have a pound symbol, but we're not going to use it. And then we're going to bring this to 2 decimal points, and that tells you what it's going to look like on the computer. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing for our expenses column. We're going to double click. We're going to highlight the cells we want to format. We're going to double click on the finger pad. We're going to come over here to format cells, and you're going to say we're not going to have a symbol, and it's going to be down to 2 decimal points, and that's what you want. It's okay. And then we're not going to format the reason. The reason is just a simple text file. You can format it if you like, but I haven't done it. So you can see that I had two incomes. One is sickness benefit, and then another is my paycheck from where I work. And then I had lots of expenses. So I had 50 pounds charity shop items, 130 pounds bed frame. My bed broke, so I have to buy a new bed frame. So I have to save my money for that. 100 pounds eating out, and that's really going to the staff restaurant where I work and just going to get a salad or something. 100 pounds grocery shopping, 135 pounds council tax, 50 pounds phone bill, 50 pounds water bill, 100 pounds electricity, and 500 pounds rent. And I think that is pretty much what I'm going to spend my money on. Except the bed frame is going to be a one-off expense. My bed has broken, and so I'm going to have to go to Argos and get a new bed frame. So that's something I have to save my money on. So we're going to total this. So there's a couple of ways you can do this, and I'll show you. You can do auto sum. So you can do a sum, but see, that's not, so you can sum like, so it gives you your auto sum B10 to B15, but really you want B4 to B15. So that's 1,200 pounds. And that particular column, that particular row, I have emboldened that particular row. So how you embolden it, which we've discovered it in previous lessons, is you highlight the row with your finger pad, and then you go home and you click on to B, and that's how you bold it. So I've showed you how to do this, calculate the totals with using the auto sum and the formulas. Now I'm going to show you how to write it in. So you're going to type equals, and the equal sign lets you know that it's a formula. Then brackets, then sum, brackets, it's going to be E4, and then colon to let you know it's going down to another one, E14. Or you can say E15. It doesn't matter. There's not anything in E15. So you can say it. And then brackets. So E4 to E15, and you press enter. So, yeah, I messed that up. So I'll let you know. It should be D. D4 to D15. So, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that my income is 1,200 pounds a month and my expenses are $1,215 a month. So that means I'm going to have to dip into my savings to pay for all of the things that I need to pay for. And we had this bed frame. This bed frame was a one-off expense. And so, next week I have to go buy a new bed frame at Argos. But obviously that's a little bit worrying because my expenses are more than my income. But I know that I have to buy a new bed frame, so I'm going to have to use my savings to buy the new bed frame. So what we've done here is we've used the sum function. So basically, that's a sum function. And then what you can do is we can do average. So you can do the average. Now, basically, how you calculate the average is the total, the sum of the total divided by the number. So really, what we've got is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one way you could do it is you can say equals B16, because we've already summed it, divided by count A, which counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Before B15. Okay, so that's 600. So 500 plus 700 divided by 2 is 600. So we got that right. But another way that you can do it, so we did that. If you want to know how Excel does it, so that's B16, that's the total divided by the count of the number of cells that are not empty from B4 to B15, and so you have 2 cells that are not empty between B14 and B15. So we're going to say another way we're going to do it is equals D16 divided by count A, so that's the number of cells in a range that are not empty, D4 D15, and you press enter, and so that's 135. So that's your average is 135. So if that's how you do it, if you've got blank cells, that's how you do it. If you want to do the average, we've got another way that you can do average. And I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we're going to give it a try. So basically, this is the way that you do it. This is the way that it's done. The average is the mean. So it's the total number divided by the number of elements. And how you do that is you count the cells that are not empty. So in income, you've got 2 cells that are not empty. And expenses, you've got more than 2 cells that are not empty. But another way you can do it is, and if all of your cells are taken up, if all of your cells have something in them, say equals average, and average and the mean are the same thing. And then we highlight the top cell and we take shift and go all the way down to the bottom cell. And it says 600. So this particular average, what it did was it took into account there were blank cells. And another thing that you can do is you can copy and paste a formula. And then when you copy and paste the formula, it will work on the cells that you're copy and pasting it to. So you highlight the cell that you want and you go Control C, which is a copy, and you go to the cell that you want to paste it to, go Control V, which is paste, and you can see that it worked as well. And so basically it worked. So whenever you do your average in Excel, it does take into account the fact that not all of the cells have data in them. So, and let's say we want the format of the averages to be the same in both of the cells. So you copy onto the cell here, which is what you want to see, and you highlight the cell, and then you go to the home menu and you go to this little paintbrush, format painter, and then you go to the cell that you want to change the format. And then so the cell painter enables you to change the format. So we'll do this again. We'll highlight the cell that we want the format to be, and we go to find that little paintbrush, and we click onto the cell that we want the format to be the same, and that's how it works. So I'm showing you some extra things that are not in the lesson plan. And so now what you want to do is another thing that we can do is we can look for the minimum value. We're going to look for the minimum value. And then so we're going to say equals min. That means minimum value. And you have all different kinds of min. So you've got min, and then you've got min A returns the smallest value, and a set of value does not ignore logical values and text. But we're just going to go min. So we're going to say min. You can say brackets, because in a formula it always has to have a bracket with it. So min brackets, and then it's going to be B4 to B15, and so your minimum value is 500 pounds. So we can take this formula and we can copy it over to the expenses side, so you don't have to rewrite the formula. And then so basically what happens is you're just copying over the formula. You're not copying over the information. So you highlight the cell that you want to copy over, and you do Control C, and you move to the cell that you want to paste it to, and then you type Control V. And so basically that's telling you that my smallest value is 50 pounds. So we have 50 pounds from charity shop items, 50 pounds for cone bill, and 50 pounds for water bill. And then next thing you want is you want your maximum. You want to find out what your maximum is. So we type maximum, and then so equals, because that's a formula, max returns the largest value in a set of value, ignores logical values and text. So so we've got max, and then so we highlight the cells that we want to get the maximum value for. And then you're going to get your end of your bracket, and then you're going to type enter. So that's going to give you 700 pounds. So that's going to tell you that your maximum value is 700 pounds. And then so you don't have to copy that formula. So you don't have to type that formula again in the expenses side. You type Control C on the cell that you want to copy, and then you go to the cell that you want it to be pasted to, and you type Control B. And so that's telling you that your maximum value was 500. And then you can also use basic arithmetic functions, being plus, minus, asterisk, and divided by. So we'll just say, we're going to say this one, we're going to say 10. I'm just using some hypotheticals. And then we're going to say 5. So we're going to say num1 and num2. And then we're going to say, and then what we're going to say the result. We're going to say result. So we're going to say, I don't want that to be emboldened, so I go home and I click onto the B so it's not emboldened. So we're going to say add nums. We're going to add the two numbers. So equals, let you know it's a formula, H1 plus I5. So that's 15 when you add the nums. So now we're going to subtract nums. So also what I want to do is I want to increase the width of this column to make it bigger. So we're going to say equals H, is that H5 minus I5. And you press enter. So that means 10 minus 5 is 5. And the next one is multiplication. So that's going to be equals H5, I believe, times, the times sign is an asterisk, I5, and then you press enter. So you multiply the numbers, and it's going to be 50. And the next thing we're going to have is divide numbers. We're going to divide the numbers. So equals, let you know it's a formula, H5 divided by I5, and you press enter. So that's 2. So you got H5 divided by I5. So that's 2. So you can fit 5 2 times into 10. So what we've done is I've shown you how to add numbers, subtract numbers, multiply numbers, and divide numbers within a formula in Excel. And so you basically, what you can do is, if you want to practice, what you need to do is you need to create a small expenses table like I've created. Create a small expenses table like I've created, and you calculate your total spending. So I've calculated my total spending, which in this instance is $12.15, and then you calculate your average spending, which in this instance is $135, and then you calculate your highest and lowest amounts, which I've calculated in this instance is $50 and $500. So that's an exercise that you can do to learn how to use formulas within Excel. And then basically maybe you can like do your own expenses. Now, I don't do my expenses personally. I try to keep my spending as low as possible. I try to live as frugally as I possibly can. And then the values that I've just given you for my income, it's close. It's close. It's not exactly that, but it's close. And so you can see, if you're living in the UK, you can see that I'm not getting that much. I mean, that's not exactly what I'm getting, but it's very close. So you can see that I'm not getting that much. And because I'm not getting that much, you know, I don't get to go shopping in nice places. I have to shop in Primark and Poundland and other cheap shops. And I have to go to charity shops. I go to handouts. And basically, one thing I was doing, I was going to this place called Queen's Arms, and they were giving clothes out at Queen's Arms. And so I was getting a lot of my clothes from Queen's Arms. Well, Queen's Arms decided that they're not a clothing charity, so they're not going to give out clothes anymore. So that means that's an extra expense that I'm going to have, because now that they're not giving out clothes, that means I have to go out and buy clothes. So I have to look in really cheap places like charity shops, which aren't that cheap anymore, and charity shops, Poundland, Primark, really cheap places like that. If I need shoes, I'll go to Shoe Zone or I'll go to Primark. And generally, when it's my birthday or Christmas coming up, I generally ask for a gift card for Primark. And then if I need shoes or underwear or anything like that, I'll use my gift card to go to Primark and get shoes and underwear. Failing that, I'll go to Shoe Zone. So you can see that the money that I get isn't much. So I have to live as cheaply as possible. And this proves one thing, that you can be smart, because obviously I have a skill. I know how to use Excel. So you can be smart and still on the breadline, because I know people who are not nearly as intelligent as I am, and they're doing so much better professionally than I am. So being smart, sometimes it's not always a good thing. So that just proves that you can be smart and still on the breadline. So even though I personally don't do my income and expenses, I do the income and expenses for my boyfriend, and I use a format very similar to what I'm showing you in this spreadsheet. But the thing is because my boyfriend, he has to submit his income and expenses to the job center, to the DWP. And the reason for that is because he's on a low income, and so he has to submit this data down to the penny. So the income and expenses I do for him, I don't do it in Excel, I do it in Google Docs. But I could do it in Excel, and the reason why is because I do it in Google Docs just because I started it in Google Docs. But I could do it in Excel just as easily as I could do it in Google Docs. And I personally prefer Excel because Excel is the industry standard. But I started it in Google Docs, and I've just been keeping it up in Google Docs. And Google Docs is similar to Excel, and you can use a lot of the same functionality in Google Docs that you can use in Excel. I mean, obviously there are variations, but Google Docs is a free software, whereas Excel is software that you have to pay for. And so since you have to pay for Excel, then you would expect greater functionality in Excel than what you would get in Google Docs. But if you don't want to pay for a subscription, and I pay for an subscription, so I didn't write in there my subscription to Microsoft, but it's over £10. So my subscription is over £10. So what we could do is we can insert, and then so we're going to say 11 July 26, and we're going to say £11 because it's definitely over £10, £11. And we're going to say Microsoft. And then so just go back whenever you add something, you have to go back and check your formulas. So that's okay. That's going to be let me see. That's okay. B4 to B16, B4 to B16, and then B4 to B16, D4 to D16, B4 to B16, D4 to D16, B4 to B16, D4 to D16, B4 to B16, D4 to D16. So you can see here my values have changed. My minimum value has changed from 50 pounds to 11 pounds. And in addition to that, my total spending has changed as well. So now it's 1,226. Let's see what we've got here. 1 D4 to D16. So you've got 1,226. So basically what that's telling you is that I'm actually spending more money than I thought I was spending because I didn't include my Microsoft. And the reason why I didn't include my Microsoft is because I pay for my Microsoft from my PayPal account. But at some point when I run out of money in my PayPal account, then I'm going to have to go back and change my payment of Microsoft to my banking account. So yeah, I forgot something, even though yesterday I asked my boyfriend, I said, well, can I go over these and have I forgot anything? And so now you can see that I'm paying for Microsoft. But if you want to use Excel and you don't want to use Microsoft, you can go on to OneDrive. And if you go on to OneDrive, OneDrive will give you a scaled down version of Excel that you can use. And so this is telling me that I need to make a course on OneDrive to show people how they can get into OneDrive and what they can do. And basically, I help my boyfriend a lot, and I've designed 2 spreadsheets for him in addition to the income and expenses that I do for him on Google Sheets. And he has to do it himself. He has to input the data himself. So I've got him to the point where he can input the data, and he has to input the data himself, and he uses his OneDrive account. And so OneDrive will give you a scaled down version of Excel. It doesn't give you all the bells and whistles that you get with Excel that you pay for, but you can do something like this, something like basic functions and things like that. If you need to do anything really fancy, then you might not be able to do it. So I think I've covered pretty much everything that I need to cover with regard to formulas. That's what this lesson was about, formulas. And so I showed you how to do total, average, minimum, maximum, and then I showed you how to do the basic arithmetic operators of addition, subtraction, multiply, divide, and showed you how to do income and expenses. So maybe if you want to practice, maybe you can do your own income and expenses, and then you will find out what I found out, that my expenses are more than my income. But I know that because I have to buy a bed frame, and that's going to be a one-off expense. But mostly I try to live as cheaply as possible, because you can see, now that you know how much I'm getting, you can see that my income isn't that much. So that concludes this video. The next video is going to be another topic, and it's going to be working with rows and columns. So I hope very much that you decide to watch the next lesson, lesson number 5, to help you in your progression in Excel skills. Thank you for watching, and I'll communicate with you in the next video.